Hola amigos, I am Pedro, aka Texan Spaniard on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, Texan Spaniard Studios on Patreon and Coffee, and this is the audio version of Pedro is Marking Out, a blog of wrestling reviews that you can find on my Coffee at ko-fi.com/Texan Spaniard Studios. If you want to read the text-only versions, go there, and if you want to just hear them in audio, keep listening to this. And if you feel like donating, you can do that too at my Coffee. All donations are appreciated. Thanks, and on to the blog read. Hola amigos, so I decided to watch the top 3 matches from the recent CyberFight festival in Japan because there was no way I was sitting through a 6-hour show of DDT Tokyo Joshi Pro wrestling stuff. The top 3 matches will do, so let's see if we achieve PIMO, aka Pedro is Marking Out. Let's check it out. CyberFight Festival, June 6, 2021, Princess of Princess title match, champion Mio Yamashita versus Yuka Sakazaki. Another chapter in the long rivalry between Yamashita and Sakazaki, and this was not a good chapter. Look, Yuka Sakazaki's strengths are in working from underneath, taking a beating, selling her ass off, using her expressive cuteness to elicit sympathy from the audience and make comebacks to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, or sometimes suffer one more heartbreaking loss to make the fans want her to win the next match that much more. Miyu always works on top. That is her style, and I can only recall a few times she worked underneath, like versus you once upon a time and so forth. Her deal is being strong and kicking people's heads off, and she really needs to leave Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling and grow more, advance her game. But in theory, these two are tailor-made to have good matches against each other. Miyu works on top, Yuka works from underneath. It is a formula they've done I don't know how many times at this point, but it works for them. They went with something different here. Yuka, who took so long to finally prove she could beat Yamashita at all, wanted to show she was as strong as her old rival, and so apparently that meant not selling stuff and attempting stoic expressions and hitting, quote-unquote strong offense. Yuka doesn't really work well in this role, and much of this was sloppy, awkward, clunky. They never got a good flow. Everything had a choppy, do something, set up something, do something, etc. I'm not saying there wasn't a story here. There was, but it was not working, and it was because both of them were out of their natural element, and it showed. Also, it kind of ticked me off that at one point Yuka is on the ropes waiting for Yamashita to kick her head off with a standing high kick, and Yuka just bows her head for maybe 1 second and then leaps off with a springboard dropkick, totally not selling this great looking kick. Later, she eats a very weak looking kick from Miyu while Yamashita was laying on the canvas, and she sold it like death. Why should I buy this weak looking kick when the great looking kick wasn't sold at all? At least Yamashita's fantastic spinning high kick that set off Yuka's destruction not only looked great, but Yuka dropped, totally decked by it. That was good, and in retrospect maybe should have been the finish. It was followed by a pump knee strike to the back that looked pretty good, but was only a 2 count, and then a total whiff of a knee strike to the front that did not connect whatsoever and looked like shit. That got the 3 count for Yamashita. I did not enjoy this match at all. I like Yuka Sakazaki when she's fighting from underneath in her natural element, and she should have just stuck to the usual formula. It would have resulted in a better match. Miyu has done everything she can in Tokyo Joshi Pro and needs to leave. She has not grown as a performer in all this time she's been there, and she desperately needs to be somewhere else like a Stardom, a Seedling, or Sendai Girls, where she can face new people and finally learn and grow a bit. Not good. I'll give them 2 stars for the effort, and they did tell a story, but nothing more. Some more notes from that match. I got a chuckle out of when Yuka hit a dive early on in the match, and then she pumped her fist, and in doing so accidentally hit Maki Ito, who was acting as a second, in the face. Later in the match, when Yuka hit the superplex from the top turnbuckle to the apron on Yamashita and both ladies were on the floor again, Maki was nearby but at a safer distance just in case any random fist bumps would catch her this time. Also, Yuka waiting on the ropes forever for Miyu to roll back in the ring, only to then botch her springboard splash, go for the cover, then break the count at 1 so she could attempt the spot all over again. And the referee, he like throws his hands up in the air in frustration and makes a face like, really? This made me laugh. KOD openweight title match. Champion Jun Akiyama versus Harashima. Come on. So this was a very pedestrian by the numbers match with a silly final stretch. Harashima bosses old man Akiyama around early, so after Jun catches the challenger with a pile driver on the floor, he works over the young man's neck for a long time. Young guy makes comebacks. Bleh. Akiyama banking on that neck, paying off in the final run, but we get just absurd finisher killing in the final stretch that ruined that story coming to conclusion satisfactorily. But whatever. Forget the in-ring narrative for a moment. Nothing looked good in this match. The years apparently have not been kind to Akiyama in terms of executing moves. Everything he did looked terrible. If my eyes didn't give me the evidence that this was indeed Jun Akiyama, I would have never believed it. Everything looked so bad. One of the worst DDTs I've seen in a long time happened in this match. Some of the worst Jumbo Surata style knees as well. Weak lariats, weak everything. It was kind of depressing to see the sad state of Jun Akiyama in 2021. As for the other guy, he executed his moves better than Akiyama, sure, but he also didn't really sell anything. He made goofy Kenny Omega-esque facial expressions while waiting to spam his offense. And he kicked out of so many finishers in that final stretch. 2 exploders? Kick out. Wrist clutch exploder? Kick out. Jumbo knee barrage? Kick out. Pull knee pads down, running knee lariat thing? Kick out. A second wrist clutch exploder? Kick out. Hard roll of the eyes. So after all of that finisher killing, it is a front face lock with body scissors that puts Harashima away, making him lose consciousness. Whatever. I couldn't buy anything at this point because nothing was ever sold and everything looked awful in this. Match story went awry in that final stretch, and this was a turd. No me gusta. 1 star. This has been a brutal viewing so far. Surely one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, Keiji Muto, will save the day in the main event defending the GHC Heavyweight Championship? Oh, let's find out. GHC Heavyweight title match, champion Keiji Muto versus Naomichi Marufuji. I have to be honest, this match was a mixed bag for me. On the one hand, it was way more fun to watch than either of the matches that preceded it, and Muto was shockingly good here. He seemed way more mobile than he did in the match where he won the GHC title earlier this year, which surprised me because he's been pretty immobile for a long time now. Which is understandable. He's older and has had 2 knee replacements at this point, among other things. But he was moving pretty decently here, and thus his execution of moves was way up from just a few months ago. His Shining Wizards looked crisper, the Dragon Corkscrews sharper, and he did a better job all around in taking offense and hitting offense than he did in that match versus Go Shiozaki earlier in the year. There was, in my opinion, a moment of kind of brilliance here, where he hit his trademark backbreaker, the one that sets up the moonsault, and he stood up and looked at the corner. The crowd came alive, a buzz with excitement and anticipation. Is he going to do the moonsault? How can he do the moonsault? He retired the move in a show dubbed the Final Moonsault even, and for good reason considering the state of his knees. Surely he's not going to do it. Muto had this moment of hesitation where he was weighing the consequences, because if he went for it, irregardless of a hit or not, his knees were going to be done for the night. His time in the match was going to be over if he went for this. So he took this gamble. So if he took this gamble, it had to pay off. His facial expression, his body language, everything sold this moment of hesitation and weighing the gamble so well that when he decided he was going to go for it, the payoff in the moment was amplified by so much. I legit marked out when he climbed to the top and hit an effing moonsault. It looked as good as his moonsault has always looked, and this was an incredible moment. This was not diminished by Marufuji kicking out. If anything, the fact that the gamble didn't pay off made the moment better because you knew Muto's run with the belt was at an end because it destroyed Muto's knees, something he sold amazingly, possibly because he didn't have to really sell much. Likely his knees were gone for real after that. It felt like a real moment of demise, and while I love Muto, I also love genuine moments in wrestling, especially in the rare times they happen in current wrestling, so this was connecting, and that was really good in my opinion. No, the problem with the finish that followed the moonsault had nothing to do with that great moonsault moment, and everything to do with Marufuji's half of this match. So Muto destroyed Naomichi's knees throughout the match via the dragon corkscrews, various holds on the legs, including at least 3 decently long hells for Marufuji stuck in the figure 4 leg lock. And hey, Marufuji sold those things while his knees were being worked over. The problem was when he had to go on offense, and suddenly it was barrages of super kicks, pump knee strikes, running and jumping everywhere with no problem. Yeah, he may have grabbed his leg like once, like in this match, but otherwise he was fine doing everything like before. This was a real problem for me in this match, and specifically the finish. If Marufuji had sold his knees, even while on offense, then when Muto hits that moonsault and Marufuji survives, and Muto is basically done at this point, you then could have had a one-legged challenger throw everything into taking out this great fighter who lost his gamble, and maybe used a cover that would have forced Muto to have to use his legs to kick out. And since the moonsault had taken those out, he wouldn't have been able to, and it would have been perfect if they had done something along those lines. I'd have nothing but praise and amazement about this match, but they didn't do that. Marufuji did as he had all match long, spammed Muto with more super kicks and pump knees, and put the old man away to win the GHC title for the 4th time, as if nothing had been done to his knees whatsoever. It was that frustrating thread permeating all 3 matches I saw from this show, the lack of selling stuff consistently and thus nullifying most everything. I don't care if abundantly excremental wrestling fans aren't concerned about this. The fault isn't in having this standard, but in the lack of having this standard in those fans, and that standard is this: in wrestling you must sell stuff. There is no payoff without selling stuff. So for me, this was a mixed bag of a match. Muto's performance was really good considering his perceived limitations and what he got out of himself in this match, while Marufuji was just waiting for his chances to hit his offense like everyone else in wrestling, it feels. I think back on some of the big Marufuji matches in the past, and I have to concede that selling was never a strong point for him, so none of this should have been a surprise, to be fair. But I guess you always hold out hope that performers will grow, but this was not the case. I loved that moonsault moment and what could have been in this match, and Muto was a joy to watch here, but the other half of this match held this back. I'll go with 2.5 stars in the end for me, and on another note, I didn't get to see the post-match because the power went out for over 2 hours right as this match ended. And now that it's back on, and I just want to get this typed out and out there. So, yeah. If something happened post-match, I couldn't say because I didn't get to see it. I absolutely will not recommend anyone watch this show. If you are a Muto fan, then you will enjoy the main event, but otherwise, you will be fine avoiding this show. There were lots more matches on this show, by the way, but as I said at the start of this, I was not going to watch 6 hours of DDT Tokyo Joshi Pro content, so I went with the top matches on the card, and that should have been a decent strategy, but it didn't pay off for me. It was a frustrating watch. Anyways, thanks for reading, and catch y'all the next time I catch some wrestling.